most common questions we get asked are about unfiled taxes. And that's really not surprising when you consider the fact that every year, 5% of the population just doesn't file. And you can get away with that for a while, but eventually either the state or federal tax agencies are going to start sending you letters, and they're going to start nice and they're going to get more aggressive as they go along. But you're eventually going to be faced with having to deal with those unfiled returns. Now, most people who haven't filed a return fall into one of two categories. The first is you got a letter from a tax agency saying they never received a return that you know you filed. This happens a lot, and it happens a lot because things get lost in the mail, big bureaucracies get confused sometimes, and if you get a letter like that, it's super easy to fix. Just get another copy of your return, submit it per the directions on the letter, and you should be fine. Now, the second category is a little more serious, and that's people who have not filed for multiple periods and you haven't filed. For situations like that, you often need representation to help you fix that complicated tax problem. So let's say you haven't filed in a long time, and all of a sudden you open your mailbox and there is a letter from the IRS saying you owe exorbitant amounts of money for the periods you did not file. Well, what causes this is what's called a substitute for return, which is what the IRS files for you when you don't file for yourself. Now, most of the time, these substitute for returns are wildly inaccurate because there are no deductions. You aren't claimed on your own taxes because the government doesn't know that you can claim yourself. It is just purely your income and the appropriate tax rates with a few other little things in there. Now, if a substitute for return has been filed for you, it is fixable. We would need to refile, but you can't just file it like you would a regular tax return. It has to go to a whole different department and things like that. So if you find yourself in that situation, you definitely want representation to help you resolve this. And so you may be wondering why you would need a company like ours instead of just a regular tax preparer like you would go to each year. Well, the answer is that the more years you have unfiled, or the more balances you owe, or the older your taxes are, this situation gets exponentially more complicated. And by that, I mean that one misstep can cost you a tremendous amount of money that you maybe didn't need to pay. For example, the Internal Revenue Service can go back 10 years as far as tax returns go. And certain states, like the state of California, can require 20 years of tax returns. That is a long time. And a regular tax preparer might just say, okay, you haven't filed in 10 years, I'm gonna do 10 tax returns for you. But the reality is that the Internal Revenue Service may not require all 10 returns. And if you go in and file all 10 of those, well, you've now filed extra years that you maybe didn't need to, generated extra old balances with all of the penalties and interest that go with it. And all of that could have been avoided with the right kind of guidance and representation from a company that specializes in this kind of work. And that's what we do. We are here to help you reconcile these complicated tax situations, whether it's old returns, large balances, complicated returns. At Tax Crisis Institute, that is exclusively what we do. We aren't a tax preparation firm. We don't do bookkeeping. We are here to help you with your back tax problem, and that is critically important if you're looking to save as much money as possible and get this done right.